Hey gang, welcome to this edition of Cassette Cult. So this is the first time I've been on camera. It's weird, but hey, my name's Josh. I love to collect cassettes and vinyl, and mostly from the metal genres and vaporwave and dungeon synth, all like these kind of abstract genres. This is just something that I'm really into, and if you've been following the channel, you kind of get that idea. For today's episode, I wanted to do something different. A couple years ago, I did a podcast called Make It Loud, and I interviewed different artists that I was big fans of, or different personalities on the internet, and was able to get some insights from them on what they liked about different music genres, and also share just like our enthusiasm for metal and other stuff. So I did an interview with a guy named Tougas, who is a member of many projects. He's an incredible guitar player out of Quebec, and he is now playing with Worm and doing that Funeral Doom project out of Florida with Phantom Slaughter, and he's part of, there's a bunch of bands, and I talk about it in the podcast that I did with him, which is what I want to share with you all. I did a podcast with him, and I put it out under the Make It Loud umbrella, and I did a video, and I never released the video. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to release the video under the Cassette Cult name. So that's going to be in the YouTube link. You can check it out if you would like to. So that's what we're going to do today, and this is kind of the route I want to go with the channel anyways. So doing more podcasts, doing more interviews and things like that. So with that being said, this album is what I talked to Phil about, and it is the Atramentus Funeral Doom album, Stygian. And this Funeral Doom album is really, really important, I think, in the genre in general. Cool vinyl off $20 spin. It's just a huge piece of work. It's monumental in my opinion within the genre, and a phenomenal album through and through. It's like 45 minutes long. There's 3 tracks. There's a 15-minute track, then a 5 to 8 minute interlude of like ambient music, and then it finishes out with like a 24-minute track. It's incredible from beginning to end. It's very scary, very creepy. And in the podcast, I talked to Phil about that, and he talks about how difficult it was to actually create this this album, and he goes into the backstory of how it came to be, which is also pretty cool. So again, check out the episode that I'm going to link. That's the vinyl. This year, Phil released this version. It's a cassette version of the same album with different artwork. Here's the tape. And this artwork is what Phil originally had in mind for the cover of the album before he got Mariusz Lewandowski, R.I.P., to do the cover. If you know Mariusz's work with Bellwitch and many other metal artists, you'll recognize that cover on the vinyl. It's very much in his style. For down here, you have the hero of the story confronting these mammoth phantom figures, kind of like sweeping over the land. And the idea behind this whole album is that he, the hero of the story, gets eternal life. And it's a much more deep story than that, but he gets eternal life, and therefore he has to walk the earth while the earth essentially dies, the sun burns out, and he watches all his loved ones pass away. So eternal life isn't all it's cracked up to be, basically. So the album covers all of that. There's a ton. I'm going to show you right here. There's a ton. This is all backstory. And then here you have the map of the territory that this hero covers in his journey. The vinyl does an excellent job. It's obviously much bigger, and you can read all the stories there, but it's a really fascinating piece of work. And I remember seeing this photo that $20 Spin put out about doing a Funeral Doom album, and I was immediately excited and immediately pre-ordered it as soon as it was available. So I wanted to share this tape because this album to me is really important, and I think it's really important for the Funeral Doom genre. And there's a lot of fantasy and kind of dungeon synth kind of vibe on this, which I really like. And obviously the backstory and the pictures and things like that are also equally as awesome. So please pick it up if you don't have it already. You should have it already, but if you don't, you can pick it up. 20 bucks spin may have copies of that left, but it has been a hot seller. And I spoke to Dave, actually, the owner of 20 bucks spin, about that as well. But please enjoy the full podcast that I did with Phil Tougas, the brains behind Atramentus and many other musical projects. And we'll see you guys next time. Oh, I forgot the rating. I give this cassette, this album, 5 out of 5 ghosts because it's kind of scary. And if it was a movie, I wouldn't want to go alone. We'll put it that way. Great album. And you know what? And let's throw a sword in there too. 5 ghosts and 1 sword. Thanks again for joining Cassette Cult. See you guys next time. All right, Phil Tougas, thank you very much for coming on the podcast tonight.
Thanks, man. You're welcome. And thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into the interview and before we talk about this one particular record that I wanted to speak to you about tonight, for the people that don't know, give the audience just a little bit of insight to your background in the metal scene, where you're from, a couple of the records you've put out, just a brief overview real quick for the listeners.
Sure. Well, I come from, I live in Longueuil. Longueuil is the south shore of Montreal, southeast, which is located in Quebec, Canada. I'm 29 years old and I started playing music when I was 10. Played punk music for 3 years until I really developed a taste for metal. My first concert, which was Judas Priest and Anthrax, and that made me a metalhead for life. I was like, okay, well, I want to play metal now.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
My life changed from there.
I was gonna ask that question too. So that's your first show. That's awesome.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, I
no, that's good.
got carried away, but
it's all no,
yeah,
all
yeah.
good. All good.
It's all good. All right. So yeah, that was my that was how I started, man. And from there, it's just I toured for the first time when I was 14, actually. In 15, I joined a musical summer camp with my my buddy Vincent. They took a bunch of kids, we matched them together, and told the kids, hey, you got to form a band with these strangers. You got to make a set list and make shows. And you're going to make a lot of them. And they did that 2 years in a row. And it's like, okay, well, I want to do that forever.
Yeah.
I want to do that forever. So
at 14 years old, you had it. You just right there.
So at age 15, started my first band, First Fragment, which is a style of music, to play a style of music known as extreme neoclassical metal. And from this band, because of this band, I branched out and met so many people over the years. I've played in over 20 bands, bands from Quebec, bands from the US, bands from Europe, bands from Mexico even, which would be in South America, Central America.
Okay.
And from there, it's like, yeah, just since then, since like that, the year was 2007. Since then, I've put out a lot of albums. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I'm bragging, but it's just, yeah, it is. Like, it is, but not really, because it is a lot of stuff. Like, probably over, if I'm counting EPs and demos and albums, probably like 40-ish. And that's like, maybe not counting guest appearances. And I've played in over 25 countries. I have my own label now called TSO Productions, and I'm giving guitar lessons to people who, listen to my bands over the years. It's like, hey, I want to learn more about what you're doing in this band, and I want to take lessons from you, and that's what I do now for a living. So
that's so cool.
That's it's been a wild ride since that first Judas Priest show.
Yeah,
that you can say that.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, like since that year, I've created so many bands in different styles because I figured like I love metal and I love all these subgenres and I want to make music and all these subgenres. And it just so happens that tonight we're going to talk mostly about a band called Atramentus,
Hmm.
which is completely different from the first real band I joined.
Yeah.
Well, the real band,
Right.
yeah, I could say that the first real band, but yeah, so gives you an idea of like how things evolved throughout the years, basically.
Totally. Totally. For the listeners out there, First Fragment has a new record coming out soon. Yeah, it's very. I know there's a couple
Very
singles out.
soon,
Yeah.
closer. Yeah. So on October 29, we have an album called Gloire Éternelle, and coming out. And like I said, it's very like it's neoclassical metal with blast beats
Hmm.
and growls. It's very intense music, not
Yeah.
for everyone, but even people who are not into the style, I mean, it's probably not gonna leave you indifferent because there's some really crazy stuff going on this album.
Yeah.
It's really cool. That was a really intense recording period. A lot of stuff happened during that period, but I'm glad to have finally done this album. It took a lot of energy, and it's like I'm really glad to put it out and to go tour with this band as soon as it's possible to do so. But at the same time, it's gonna make me able to focus on all these other bands I'm working on
Sure.
because it's like that took a lot of my energy. And now that it's kind of finally being put out, I can like focus my energy elsewhere with other projects, musical projects or non-musical projects. So
Sure.
yeah, it's about a relief, but also a really strong sense of accomplishment with this record.
Yeah, and anyone who hasn't checked it out yet, I would definitely recommend checking out the singles that are out because they are. It's just bananas. The technicality, like every single member in that band is like absolutely top notch, and you can hear it. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, the bass player is just off the hook. I mean, your leads, the drums, everything is just nonstop, and it's flawless.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
I
I
mean,
really appreciate it.
it's really something. So I think that maybe at the end of this interview, or maybe the compendium playlist that I'll put together for people to listen to, I'll definitely put some of those new tracks on there
Mm.
because it's really impressive stuff. So um, tonight we're going to talk about one of your projects, a band called Atramentus. And Atramentus falls in the category of funeral doom, which is a very extreme subgenre of metal.
Yeah.
It's extreme in its own way. I would say, it's not. It's definitely not fast. It's the total opposite of fast, actually, and it's a very interesting style of metal in general. So, I'd like to get your kind of 2 cents, your kind of synopsis about funeral doom in general. Like, what do you have to say about the genre as a whole?
Um, I will say that this genre came into my life when I was um, kind of emotionally kind of a mess,
Mm.
and it really got me through it, you know.
Mm.
So what I can say about this genre is that it's really cathartic in a very specific way. Therefore, it is not for everyone.
Sure.
Um, I feel like listening to this genre or writing it is kind of a way to face certain emotions or certain memories or something that is most people don't want to face or experience, but they eventually all have to. For me, this is why I think it's not necessarily um, accessible because it kind of slaps you in the face with that. But I mean, some bands in that genre obviously have a more of a fantasy side to it, and that's really awesome. But it's more about what the emotion, what it triggers as like what type of emotion it triggers. with some people. And I guess this is a feeling, some of these feelings and emotions and memories, it's probably something we don't necessarily want to face or experience, because a lot of people, they want to listen to music to experience joy or something like that, which is totally fine too. I listen to a lot of albums to experience those emotions myself. So a lot of people, so when I show Funeral Doom to people who are not familiar with this, they're like, you know, this isn't bad, but I don't want to listen to it. It makes me feel bad, you know? And it's like, what can you say to that? They're right. They're totally right. They're totally right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because it comes from a dark place, and it's not for, you know. So I guess for me, that's one of the most extreme genres of music, in metal, at least, out there, just because of that, you know. Not
Yeah.
because of the musical aspect of it. It's just because like the what it paints, like the sort of mental image that you get when you listen to it, or what it triggers inside you, like an emotional the type of emotional responses it triggers, you know.
Yeah, like the kind of emotions that it evokes
Yeah,
as you listen to a record
yeah,
like this. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with that. And I think that we can all, I mean, those of us who listen to Funeral Doom can very distinctly remember the first time that they'd heard it, or the first record that they heard.
mhm.
So do you remember the first time that you were exposed to this genre?
Yeah. So the first Doom band I heard, not the first Funeral Doom band, but the first band I really got into was, well, it was Candlemass, of course, but one of them
Hmm.
is actually Scald, which I have on my hoodie.
Oh,
But it's like, you know, I'm a big fan of Candlemass Skull, like massive fan. But back then it was like, oh, it's cool, but I don't fully get it.
sure.
But for some reason, I kind of went backwards. The first Funeral Doom band I really got into was Evoken, and from there I listened. Like the first album I heard was Embrace the Emptiness, and for me, it's the best Funeral Doom album ever made, like bar none. You know,
Yeah.
and from there, because of this album, I discovered other albums in the genre, and then I went back and like rediscovered traditional doom in a proper way. And yeah, but
In
yeah,
a proper
I
way.
guess it's kind of weird. Like I discovered like more traditional bands like Candlemass and Skull before, but it's like it's kind of weird. Like I was into it, but not as much as I wanted, and it took me a journey into the dark depths of Funeral Doom to eventually come back out of it and discover the originators of the genre. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird. But yeah, the first time I heard "Embrace the Emptiness" by Evoken, it was, I don't know, it's just like a typical fall day, and just like the conditions were perfect. It's just like a gloomy day outside, and hearing like the really deep vocals and the synthesizers, and with the drums soaked in reverb, I was like, this is wow, just, you know. And for that, the same feeling experience when I heard Storm Crowfleet by Skepticism. It's like you know, I associate colors with sounds, and
Yeah.
without even seeing the album cover, I was seeing shades of yellow and red. And when I saw the album cover, it's like, okay, there's something about this genre of music that triggers something in me. That's not just an emotion, but it's literally colors, more so than and every other style of music. And it's like I need to find more bands like this that really, when I listen to it, I see something. I don't just hear it, I see it, you know. And with Evoken, it was the same thing. I was seeing these colors, these shapes, you know. And I don't know, I discovered Thurgaton after, and you know, all these bands, and like every band I discovered, it was always like a set of colors that I could picture, you know.
Sure.
It's called synesthesia, I think.
Oh,
Not
okay.
too familiar with the proper terminology or whatnot, but
That's really interesting.
the thing with, like I said, seeing colors or seeing things when you hear a sound or a song or whatever. It's always been in me, but for some reason, the Funeral Doom, it really became more and more apparent. So that's why, that's one of the things that really made me want to stick to that style of music. Because, like I said, I discovered metal with heavy metal and power metal, neoclassical metal, and then once I was like, I went through my, only 80s metal is real, everything else sucks. But then I got out of that and I discovered death metal. And, I discovered Morbid Angel, old school death metal. I was at the same time really technical death metal. It's like, I like all of this. It's like, I like some of the heavy stuff. What if it could be heavier? And I guess, eventually that's led me to do metal and funeral doom. But none of these styles that I mentioned before had this particular response that from my senses. Like when I listen to it, I just like literally see colors.
Mm-hmm.
And some death metal bands do that from time to time, so, but they're very rare. With funeral doom or doom metal in general, it's much more blatant. So yeah, Evoken definitely, like I said, Evoken is skepticism. In later years, worship. That was one of I discovered that when I was, I don't know, like 21. That was about the time I created Atramentus.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask about skepticism and Thurgathon in particular, but the first time I heard skepticism, it was like, oh, like they were just on a totally different level. And I watched like a documentary about it, and the singer talking about like he was like trying to figure out how to sing or how to do vocals to music like that. And
Yeah.
I think that one of the band members gave him like I don't know if it was gosh, I should have wrote this down before I got into this train of thought, but it was a tape. I don't think it was Napalm Death. It might have been like an early Napalm Death tape, but he said, just do this. And that's how, and there's this whole new style of like vocal, like deep guttural vocals over top of this very, dramatic, even some would say cinematic style of like metal music. And the contrast was just outrageous. And that kind of grew that style. People started to do it after that, but they were some of the first. And watching some live footage of them is really interesting to me too. Just their stage presence is also.
Oh yeah,
is also
I really want to see them live.
Yeah, I would love to see them live. And I don't even know. I think they just put out a single. To be honest with you, I think they just put out a single recently. But as far as touring goes, who knows? But that's great. Evoking. That's exactly like the kind of stuff that I was looking for.
The contrast you said, like deep guttural vocals over the synthesizers. That's one thing that like put me on my ass the first time. I remember.
Yeah.
I don't know. I forget which song by Evoken, but that was so I discovered it for the first time. It's like, oh man, I gotta put this on a CD. Like I had like a Discman back then, way back then, like not an iPod or anything, just like a Discman. I burned it on a CD, and I went on a walk at like 2-3 a.m. And I don't know. I put the CD on, like just like stopped in the middle of the road, dropped my backpack, put the CD in my CD player, took my headphones, and I walked. And this one song comes in, and I literally had to stop walking. I was like, it's like the deepest. I think it's called. The song is called Ascend into a Maelstrom, something like that. It's off the first album. It's like I heard it, I was like, holy fuck! It's like really like one of the heaviest riffs ever. Just like the extremely creepy sense, and like the vocals come in at the same time. It's like my sense were overwhelmed. It's like this is like the perfect like way to like crush people and like crush their emotions. Like imagine if I had this power to make music like this and just literally completely destroy them like emotionally by just like fuck. Oh man, it's like that feeling was indescribable. Only not many albums made me feel that way. Some esoteric stuff when I discovered esoteric a few months later and had the same impact on me. It's obvious, people who have checked the Atramentus credit, they will see that
Mhm.
we have worked with Greg for the mastering of our album. Greg from Esoteric. He also did the mix for the Catalyst album, and there's for a reason, because I like what he does. And he mixes some of the, I think he mixed all the Esoteric stuff. And it's like, when I heard that album, I like all these Esoteric albums. I have all of them, even like the first pressings of like the early albums and shit. But
Wow.
when I heard the newest one, the newest one, I mean, Paragon of Dissonance, back when it came out, it did had the same impact. I was like literally floored. It's just like
You have to sit down.
stopping dead in everything I was doing. I was like, just
Yeah.
what is going on?
Yeah. When you get knocked down, when you hear
Yeah.
something and you get knocked down like that, it's really
Yeah, it's really special,
it is.
it's really special.
Yeah. I know that for me, like I definitely remember where I was. I mean, when I got the Atramentus record and I like sat down and like opened it and like read through the whole insert and just like listened to the whole album like beginning to end. Uh, yeah, I remember it was in our old house where we used to live, and I just remember it just like it was yesterday. And the only other album that I can remember that happening with was the first time I heard the Mirror Reaper album, the Bell Witch record, and that was a very similar experience where just like, it was just kind of unbelievable. I'm like,
Yeah.
you just never heard anything like that before. Okay, so with that being said, the Atramentus album, very heavy, very deep, very emotionally cathartic, as you said. Take us back to that period of time when these songs came together, because it's my understanding that there is a large gap between when you wrote these pieces and when they were actually recorded. That's correct, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if you don't mind, just let's go back and just kind of walk us through how that first piece initially came to be.
Well, well, it was like 9 years ago. It was a really long time ago. Like I said, I was always on my walks, doing my nightly walks,
Yeah.
listening to music and stuff. And one time I was out, uh, walking. I was going at my old neighbor's place, and there was this insane snowstorm, like completely insane, like one of the biggest snowstorms ever. And I didn't stay home. I just went there and I walked for hours. Like, it was dumb looking back at it. Like, who goes out in a snowstorm at 2, 3 a.m. when it's so cold? And I don't know, man. At the time, I was going through some personal stuff, and just like the feeling that I have inside and the actual like physical pain of like, it's so cold outside, the winds are literally hurting my face and my body, you know and coming back home, and just like, it was like so overwhelming. And it's like what I just experienced right now. And like, I have to, like, how do I like express that? I can't like right now, I cannot really express it into words. Just like the combination of like what I was going through, like this undescribable feel of like, just like being in the dark and super cold, and this sense of like looking for something, like a really indescribable feeling of longing. Combine that, it's like, how can I, like, I need to get this out of my system, you know? And first thing I did was just grab my guitar, and I wrote a chord progression. And from that single chord progression came out an entire fucking song. That's the last song of the album. That was that the band was born that way, like super spontaneously. It's like I was already like really into Funeral Doom. It's like I really like this. I feel like this is the perfect format for me to really get the message across. It's not beat black metal because I was see that's another thing. Back in 2012, especially like between 2009 and 2012, I was doing First Fragment, I was doing Catalyst. First Fragment and Catalyst both had releases out, and I was doing other bands too. But at the same time, I was kind of feeling a little, um, I don't know. In Quebec, it's either like there was a lot of black metal, a lot of death metal, a lot of deathcore, and I was kind of just, I don't know, too much of it, of all of this,
Got it.
too
Yeah.
much of all of that. It's like I want to do something that's completely antithesis of all, just really, really, really slow, and just crushing, and just like I want people like hear basically a musical repetition of what I've experienced, this feeling that I've been experiencing, plus with the actual like the coldest snowstorm I've ever been in, and like literally being exposed to it for many hours, like the physical aspect of it, and put that into a song,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't care. It's not the style of music that's really popular in Quebec. It feels like this is the proper outlet for expressing something like this. And obviously, I came up with the concept in the lyrics later, but that was like that everything that you find within the concept of this album, the story or the emotions that you feel while listening to it, or just the feeling of coldnessness, just it all comes back to this one night.
Yeah.
I hadn't gone outside during that time, probably wouldn't be on No Tremendous.
Right.
It's crazy, but I mean, the thought of doing a Funeral Doom Man was back into my mind, but it really came down to really feeling something and wanting to express that, and then finding the right musical ideas that really portray that. Like I said, it started from this one chord progression. And interestingly enough, it was the chord progression at the end of the song, the last song. That was the first thing I written for this band, for this song, was the last thing, and kind of just that inspired the beginning of the song, and from there, But yeah, that was it, and that was how the band started. That was just by myself for a
Wow.
while, yeah. And
That's
obviously other stuff followed, but yeah.
yeah. So the second song, well, I should say the third song, the final song on the record, was
Yeah.
the first one that you actually wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yep.
So so the first song on the record, this one came about a year later, right?
Yep.
So how did that one come about?
Um, it was a little bit different. So it was the same kind of night I first discovered Evoken. So this a really gloomy night outside. Really, well, like it was like in the fall, and like I said, just like the gloomy atmosphere outside is just how it gets during the fall. Like
Mhm.
daylight vanishes pretty quickly, and you got like dead leaves and stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't know, just stepping outside for a bit, just like letting all, just taking that all in and coming back inside. And I don't know, it's just I remember that one night I was like, I won't go into details, but I was like hadn't showered in days, and I was feeling completely depressed, and just I don't know, just really fucking terrible place mentally. I felt like I don't know, and so it's like for some reason it's like and that's one of those times like I had a riff, a really heavy riff, that I didn't know what to do with, and I kind of that same night I re-listened to it, because like I'm just like feeling good, and just I want to, do something that kind of occupies my mind. And I was listening back to this riff, and for some reason I started being, it's like, oh, for some reason I'm hearing another riff after that, and then another, and I wrote the entire song in one night. And I remember I didn't eat. I didn't, like, for all this time, for all these hours, I didn't eat at all. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just wrote nonstop,
Jeez.
and just like the feeling of like kind of like half delirious from not eating and tired, and kind of just, it's ugly as hell. It's, well, I mean, autumn is not ugly. It's just it's a saying, like it's like gloomy and weird outside, and just a combination of all of this put me in a mood that it's like I don't. It's not a pleasing mood, and I don't know. Like I was kind of feeling like I want to express like some kind of like discomfort, hopelessness, and also like music themes that kind of evoke like melodies that make you think of like the same kind of gloominess that's like outside in it's like in a fall, during the fall. I don't know if that's making sense, but
it does.
Like, so it's like those, what these songs have in common, it's like they're kind of both inspired by some stuff I was going through, but at the same time, like what I've experienced from like outside elements,
Yeah, it's
so it's like a mix of both, so it's like I said, for the last song, it probably wouldn't exist if I had gone out in that snowstorm, and for this song it probably would not be the way it is if it hadn't been written had been written during the summer,
Sure. Yeah.
It's just like just looking at the sky outside and like seeing the colors, like, can I write riffs that I can associate with the colors that I see in the sky, and something like that, and kind of wanting to express that feeling that I associate, like that I'm feeling right now, that I'm coincidentally associating with this season, and like the lack of sunlight and everything. It all fits together, and that's why the concept behind the album is the way it is. It's inspired by the seasons, because it's all coming back to those nights, the way I experience these things, So some people ask me like, when is the new stuff going to be written? It's like, I don't know, man. It's like I can't just do it like that. It has to be like a combination of things that happen in my life and things that I physically experience to be able to come up with stuff the same way I did with the Atramentus album.
Yeah.
And so that was in 2012 and 2013, and it's a long time ago. I'm a different person right now, but the main reason why it took so long is because it took me so long to find a damn lineup, man. that's another thing, man. It's like I said, I took the risk of doing a style. It's like, I'm so tired of, I mean, I'm not tired of, because it's kind of weird. Like I played that metal, but at the same time, I was like kind of saturated by it. So it's like, I want to make something that's, it's different from death metal and black metal and whatever, but that's the risk. It's like, not a lot of people do want to do funeral doom.
Right.
So I had these songs, and I wanted to write more, make an even longer album. It's like everything kind of fucked up the flow of what these two songs had. So it's like I was like, I gotta accept that this is it.
Yeah.
This is like what I experienced the most. Everything else that I write right now is not up to par, and I'm just gonna go with these two songs for now and see if the guy from Ktilist, Claude, was interested in being second guitar. We already have a band together, but otherwise it was just a waiting game. So finding these members took a long time.
I read in an interview that you did with I don't, it's again, shame on me for not getting the name of the website.
Oh, it's all good.
It had something to do with oranges. I remember that because it was really it was kind of a funny name.
Invisible Oranges.
Invisible Oranges. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So you said that in particular, it took you 6 years to find a drummer to do it, and how you didn't want to do it with program drums,
Hmm.
and you didn't want to do anything like that. And I thought, being a drummer myself, I thought that was so cool that you just didn't. I love,
Yeah,
because that's, you hear that kind of stuff. You hear these you can hear when someone's actually playing the music and when the room is live. And you hear these little like minor imperfections and different tempo changes and things like that. And I think that
yeah,
gives a song so much more life than doing program stuff. And nothing against people using program drums or doing anything like that. It's just that there's certain styles of music that I think require um, the human feel. And I think what you did with Atramentus and actually waiting and figuring out your lineup to perform those pieces, I think
yeah,
that adds so much to it. Because
yeah. I agree.
you could have easily had it done probably within that year. I mean, if you
Yeah.
wanted to, but you
Hmm.
didn't, and
Yeah,
you did it the way that you wanted. And now we have this amazing piece for the rest of the time. So
yeah.
respect for that, absolutely.
Thanks. Yeah. Like you said, I could have done it with a drum machine, but
Yeah.
when I was back then, I was like, are there any funeral doom bands from Quebec? From my province? I mean, in Canada there is, but in my specific province, and I mean, my friend Sam played in a band called Towards Darkness, and they're good, pretty good. But I was researching funeral doom bands from Quebec, and it's all like drum machine stuff. It's like, is
Mm.
this really like? No, I'm not like insulting these bands or talking shit about them. But it's like,
Totally.
can like perhaps Quebec Extreme Doom can offer a little bit more than that, you know? And it's like, I don't want to be another one of these random ass drum machine bands, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think
So there's a little bit of that, you know? It's sometimes I kind of do two things, spontaneously. Sometimes it's out of spite. Sometimes it's both at the same time. So it's
sure.
just, there's a little bit of that too. It's just like, well, no, I don't want to be lazy like everyone else.
Yeah.
Just,
Well,
I'd rather wait, you know?
yeah, totally. And I think that's what's cool about you kind of coming up with these pieces yourself, and you like being the quote unquote mastermind behind it is you have this vision and you have
Yeah.
all of this, and you can share that with people. And if people are down with it, then they'll want to be involved. And
Yeah.
if they're not, then they're not. And that's cool too.
Yeah.
But you ultimately have the say and kind of the direction. And there you go. You made your decision, and it all paid off as far as I'm concerned. I think a lot of people would say the same. Um, so so those two songs you wrote. Let's talk briefly about the ambient piece that bridges the two.
Yeah.
How did that start? How did that come to be?
So I'll just do a quick, before I answer your question, I just want to make a quick um, go back in time a few years before.
Sure.
A
Yeah.
guy on, I think I made a post on the Keyless page saying that I was kind of like, that was like, you know what? I don't even remember what the post was about. I actually don't. But I
Oh,
do
okay.
remember that a guy messaged me because of it, and it was François Bilodeau, the keyboardist of the band. He was so he's in the same family as the drummer of Catalyst.
Okay.
Not like, I think, I you know what, I don't remember, cousin, or I don't. I'm not good with that.
That's all right. No problem.
Yeah, I mean, so he messaged me and he's like, yeah, I want to, yeah, you gotta, I like D-List, it's really cool. You said something about your funeral doom project, or you're looking for somebody or something. And he sent me some of his compositional ideas. I was like, that's some really good stuff. Like, I was really impressed, like with his synth work and his composition style. And I'm like, listen, I wrote these songs. So that was like in 2000, I don't know, 14, 15, or 16. Yeah, I don't remember, man. It's just, but anyway, I sent him the songs. I sent him the whole Tremendous album. It was written a long time ago. It's like,
Right.
what was he done? And he's like, holy shit. This is like, he was like, like he was the first person I showed the songs to. He understood exactly the vibe. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this reminds me of this band and this band and this band and this band, but at the same time, it sounds like nothing like any of them directly, you know?
Sure.
So it's like he really understood the vibe. It's like, and he's like, "Do you want a keyboardist?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, do you want to be my keyboardist?
Yeah.
And from there, we kind of built a friendship from that. And um,
So let me interrupt you real quick.
yeah,
Did he play the organ parts on the
yeah.
record?
So he
Awesome.
played all of it. So what I did is I basically wrote all the arrangements, and he kind of played them the way I wrote them, but like he had his own touch to it at the same time. So it's the best out of both worlds,
Yeah,
basically.
absolutely.
And he's the one that came up with all the ambient parts. So this is where I'm going to go back to your question. I was telling him, listen, I don't think I can write any more music for this album. Like I tried writing a third song, but it's like it doesn't fit with these. So I think I'm gonna go with these two songs. And then we were like starting to flesh out a concept. And I told him like I wrote this song during the winter and the other song during the fall. So I want to make a concept around these two seasons and a story around it. And I was writing the story, and I was like, I need, like, we started talking about ambient music, and turns out he's a huge fan of ambient music, more so than me. And he has contributed, I think, like dark ambient stuff with other projects. I'm not sure, but he was already well versed, you know.
Sure.
He's into like field recordings and
Cool.
creating textures out of just nothing, you know, almost like just. And I was like, we're talking about just the idea of bridging these two songs together, and it started from the basic idea of we want to bridge, we want a song that portrays a change of seasons, going from autumn to a winter. And that was that was the basis of everything. Obviously the idea developed into something much bigger after that, but
Right.
it all starts from the same point. Like it was inspired by the seasons, and from there he built upon this idea, and the end result was incredible. I still get chills from it, honestly. Yeah. It's one of the, like, basically I explain, when I fully fleshed out the concept, I explain the concept to it, like step by step, and it's like, okay, this and this is happening in a story. And when I wrote the lyrics for it, you can actually, if you read kind of slowly, you can actually read along the song, the way like the song unfolds, like the ambient part unfolds, and it matches what I wrote, basically. And he kind of nailed that without even knowing all the lyrical lines by heart. It's just, I don't know, the chemistry was really amazing for that. And it was really cool. Like he asked me, okay, Phil, I want you to include, like, send me a bunch of clips of you screaming, or you shivering, or something like that. And he kind of arranged it in a way that's like, it really put a phases on the whole build-up factor, like the change of seasons, and the, like, you really feel like something is coming at you, but really slowly, and it's like so overwhelming. You're like this, you're like, oh, whoa, stop, and it's totally. Like that whole feeling. It's like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. It's like a change of seasons, but it's actually something much more. And obviously in the album, in the story, the events happening in the album really work with the sounds he used for the dark ambient passage. And so everything is just like perfectly like intertwined together. And the same thing he did with the ambient parts of the last song. Like I said, I kind of explained to him vaguely, okay, well, this one part, it's like the character behind the story is walking up by himself through endless plains of ice. And so what he did, he just made a field recording of that. And he just like added some synthesizer textures over that, and it works perfectly.
Yeah.
The way he made it transition towards the clean passage at the end, like the change of key, is like honestly, that was great. Like I didn't expect like I know some theory, of course, but
Sure.
the way he did it is like it's seamless,
It
and
is.
it is done masterfully, I think. Not to tune my own horn, but we really lucked out in finding him. So great keyboardist and great composer. Because for me, it is a composition. Like for other people, it's like, oh, it's just a ambient interlude. But it's like, no, I don't agree. It's a piece. It's a song.
It's
It's
yeah,
just
it's absolutely a piece. Yep.
exactly. It's every sound, every song is just sounds basically. With just you just hear tones. This song is a composition of its own. It has a beginning and an end. It has a theme. It's just there's no like specific like notes and everything, but it doesn't need to have notes. It's to be music. Music is sounds and assemblage of sounds. So
Yeah.
for me, it is a song.
Yeah, I think it ties the two pieces together so well, and
Yeah.
you can hear. I mean, I do listen to a lot of ambient. I listen to Steve Roach and Robert Rich and what's his name? Say not Richard Stern, Michael Stern,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And as soon as that piece came on, like I knew from reading different reviews and different people talking about the album that there was this ambient piece that bridged the two compositions together. And as soon as it came on, I was like, this is brilliant. This is like just this haunting tone, and then as you say, the build up and then the gasp of air at the very end of it.
Yeah.
And then it's just like that echoey feel, and it just fades, and then boom, like you have that really like
Yeah.
low key like cymbal drum hit, and then you start that picking part to
It's
begin that last
yeah.
song. The way that it all flows together is just, I mean, it's great. I couldn't have asked
I
for
appreciate it. I really appreciate you saying that because it was a lot of work to really make something like a dark ambient song seem theatrical because the entire concept behind the album, you could say a lot of things about it, but it's definitely theatrical in some matter, and finding a way to make that sound theatrical to kind of emphasize a part of the story it's challenging, but
sure.
he was able to do it, and we will do it again.
Yeah, it worked so well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can tell. I mean, you can tell that there's a lot
Yeah.
of thought put into it. But it's a great like bridge piece for sure. So let's talk about. So that's basically like the recording and all the the pieces and how you came up with that. Let's talk real quick about the art, because it is, I mean, the layout and the piece from Mariusz Lewandowski is, I mean, it encompasses the entire story. I mean, this small night on a field of ice with these towering, cloaked
Mm-hmm.
figures. Did you give him the music? I mean, and did he kind of like base his painting off of what he heard? Is that how it all went?
So I wrote out the entire concept and sent him the album. So he had everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So I sent him the entire concept, but I sent him specifically the lyrics of the last song. It was like, there's an entire lore behind this album, but the last song is where. So the left side of the canvas is meant to represent the first song, which is the death of the sun, the end of the world. And in the story, the sun dies after a warrior, the guardian of Atros Kern, takes the blade of the sun, which is her immortal essence. He appropriates it for himself. He becomes immortal. The sun dies. That triggers a series of cataclysmic events. He sees everyone dies around him except him. So you see on the left side of the canvas towering waves of water and a sun that's fading behind. So that represents the first song. So I told him to do that to represent the first song. And on the main part of the canvas, like the right side, that is the aftermath. Years have passed. The immortal knight wakes up from his slumber, and the sun has died, and the world that was swept by the waves of water, the water has turned into ice because because of the end of the world, and basically the scene here that I wanted to depict is like, well, this I sent him the lyrics of the third song specifically. It tells of his journey throughout the ice wasteland and the unending darkness, his, and not just the darkness that he sees, but the darkness inside him, like the regret of,
Making
immortality is a price.
Yeah.
You see everyone die around you, and you have to live with that pain forever. And that pain it becomes much more than the physical pain that you feel when outside, like entering blizzards, or it becomes like something else. It becomes your own fear, and that fear, I guess, the way Marius. So I told him basically, when like describing the visual aspect of it, I want an album that feels cold when you listen to it. And I was telling him about how the character like experiences his grief and his fear, and I guess Marius kind of interpreted that, his fear, as like something like that becomes something more than fear, like I said, something like that you can actually see, like your personification of fear. And I guess that fear that
manifests
that yes, thank you, that manifestation of fear, or that manifestation of grief and sorrow and death that surrounds you but can't really take you, is those towering figures, and like this like dark sun inside it, which is like just the dead sun basically,
right?
Because I don't know how to visually portray a dead sun, so it's he kind of did like a circle, and it just works perfectly. It's just, you have like the transition from like fall and the end of the world to the aftermath, the winter, the endless winter and the darkness, and the character on the album cover just screaming his head off because he can't take it anymore. That's what he's doing on the album cover, by the way. If you were in case where you're wondering, he is like this. He's screaming his head off. That's like you can't take it anymore. That's
totally.
it.
No,
it's like you see, like there's the cold, and like there's the shadows that is in his grief. It's like he lost everyone, and he's like his memories are just like knives, stabbing him in his mind, because it's like he can't get that out of his head. It's like he lives with immortality. You live with that forever. So it's just like he's like this.
Yeah.
And it's funny, there's this Instagram page that we shared for album cover. It didn't like mention the band. I don't really care about that. It's just like they just posted the album cover, and they asked, what do you think this album cover means? And like the post got like 15,000 like likes, and so many comments, and so many people saying like something about death, or something about there were some funny comments, obviously memes being thrown around. I can appreciate that. My sense of humor is pretty broken, but like there was many of these comments were like, a lot of people kind of like had a similar idea, not quite it, but at the same time pretty close. So it's like, I guess you get a feeling of hopelessness and death and coldness when looking at it, and it's a good description, I think.
Yeah, I think that I mean, knowing that he had the piece of music and had the lyrics and stuff, it makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the album cover is of clear depiction. I mean, it couldn't be any more clear as to what you're getting into. When I first saw the album cover, I mean, that's what got my attention right away. And then 20 Buck put out, there's a couple snippets on YouTube, that was really all that we got when we first learned about the record. But it was just like this they went together so well, and it was such a powerful image, and it was such a powerful like taste of things to come. I remember looking at the YouTube comments and watching it, because I would go back and listen to that clip, because it was like 2.5 minutes long,
Mm-hmm.
and we knew that there was another 13 minutes or whatever for that particular piece, and it was like, oh my god, like listen to this. And I would go back and listen to it and just watch the comments stack up, and people were just like, you had me at the album, cover, like I'm all in on this. And the comments are just like awesome. I mean, I know that
Yeah.
there's a stigma attached to, like, when you put something out, like you shouldn't read the YouTube comments or whatever. I don't know how you feel about all that stuff. But for these clips that came out back in like the summer of last year, like before the album was actually on pre-order and before it actually came out, the comments are just like album of the year, hands down. I mean, they're so positive, and they're so just like enthusiastic, because the taste that we all got, we had just never heard anything like it before. I do realize that there's quite a bit of irony. People saying like, this is awesome, this is the best, like this is the best thing that's came out all year, because it did come from a really, really dark and heavy place for you. So
Yeah.
I have to imagine that they're how would I say it? When people talk about the record and it being so good, quote unquote good, you're probably kind of like, well, yeah, thanks. You know, I kind of had to go through some shit to make it, but I guess thanks. You know, is there a little bit of conflict there when you think about it, or?
Well, not that much. I mean, for sure, I'm curious to know what, like, if somebody tells me I really like this album, of course, a part of me will be like, what did this album make you feel like?
Sure.
Because there's so many ways people have interpreted the album, like the way it made them feel like.
Yeah.
Very interesting, actually. Some really interesting contrast. But like I said, I'm really curious about it. But sometimes it's all it takes, because you know, maybe that person will be like, I really like this album, but they're not necessarily gonna tell more about it, because maybe it's their experience is so personal that maybe they don't want to share it. You know, that's a little bit, that is that thing about it. So, you know, coming back to Evoken, when I met the guys in Evoken, when Katilis played with Evoken in 2018, you know, we were chilling backstage and, like, you know, just shooting the shit, and I'm like, guys, I'm really stoked to hear your set. I'm a big fan of your music. But I didn't actually sit down with the vocalist and I'd be like, listen, your band changed my life, and it made me feel that way and that way and that way, in so many fucked up times in my life. You know, I don't try to be like, to sound like a woe is me kind of guy. I mean, I have a very extremely loving family and amazing friends, but it's just some stuff happened that kind of broke me emotionally. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't want to talk about this necessarily with the guy that, you know, helped me through it. I mean, sure, they would probably appreciate, and sure, maybe I did say something that kind of hinted at that. I kind of like said, listen, I really like your band. It has had a huge impact on me, but I kind of left it at that, you know. In the same way that some people reading these comments on the internet, sometimes I'll see people are like extremely enthusiastic, or sometimes they'll be like, they tell the experience. Sometimes they'll say, this is really good, I really like it. It's like, I mean, it's fine. They just want to say it that way and not go into details, because maybe they really enjoyed it as a backdrop piece for something that we're doing. It's like, I'll put it again and again and again when I'm doing that specifically. Or sometimes they'll be like, I had a really profound experience, but I'll just comment and just say it's really good. I'm not feeling like going writing an essay on like what it made me do it, and that's fine. You know, I enjoy both sides of it. Much like I enjoy seeing people like be like, this is really heavy, it's really cool. It's like, well, I guess it is heavy, so thank you. Or people saying like, it's really a profound experience. It's like I enjoy this comment too, you know, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's a wild ride. I'll be frank, it's a wild ride for sure. So I do appreciate both for different reasons, you know,
Yeah,
both like type of reactions, you know.
sure. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear because it's definitely something to be proud of. I maybe maybe think about it a little bit differently, being a musician myself, paying attention to different things and the different layerings and how you are imagining maybe how you put it together, you know. But just from I mean, the whole story and the whole concept behind the album that you wrote is fascinating. I mean, it's intriguing and it's gripping, and it really keeps you, once you have that backdrop, you know, or as you're following along with the insert and you're listening to the music, it makes it that much more powerful. And I thought that was a really unique aspect to the record in the first place, because I still don't know if there's any other record out there that has done something like that. If perhaps there is, but I just don't know about it.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'm stoked you feel that way, man.
Yeah.
We worked hard on it, so glad to hear.
It's clear. It's clear, and I think that if anyone's listening to this and they're like, what the hell are they talking about? I would definitely encourage y'all to go out and get the actual record, like the vinyl, because the insert, the art, everything about it is super cool, and just draws you in that much more. And then from a sonic aspect, you know, just from a strictly like musical point of view, there's so many things going on. I mean, there's your guitar playing, there's the slow, very, you know, sparse, I guess sparse would probably be the word for it. Excuse me. Sparse sounding drums. Yeah, the organ, your vocals. I mean, multiple layers on the vocals. I mean, and that's what it seems like. I could be interpreting this totally wrong.
Yeah.
But everything just stacked on top of each other creates that sound you were talking about, the sound that would just like emotionally just like take someone out. You have to sit and listen to it, you know, and just really experience it. And everything that you did with the record, and everything that your bandmates did, it just all came together so well. I don't think you'd find anyone that would say different. It's just unbelievable.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the last thing that I wanted to ask was about the how Dave at 20 Buck got a hold of it. How did the distribution come to be of this record?
So when we, you know, secured the lineup, I mean, I'm Xavier, the drummer. I've known him for so long. We were always talking about the idea of him joining the band, but it never really happened until 2018. And in 2018, it's like, you know, I had Antoine join the band from Ctilis. I'm the bass player for Ctilis. And it's like, we'll have a full lineup, and I don't know. One time it's like let's record the album. Like we have a full lineup, and we were like kind of busy with the other bands. Like, but one night I was like, listen, guys, let's like I'm not feeling good right now, and I want to take up my mind off things, so I'm gonna start recording the album. And we started recording the album just like that. Just like wow. It was kind of like we had the full lineup. It was almost like being put on the side again because we're all these bands happening, doing stuff, you know. Sure. Mm-hmm. And the album was already like I said, already written and stuff. It just like, but it's like I kind of veered it back, and it's like, okay, let's do it, and we did it, and we worked on it for all of like end of 2018, all of 2019, and we decided like, oh, we're gonna do the mix ourselves. Xavier, the drummer, is gonna do the mix, and the plan was, okay, we gotta do the mix and everything ourselves, and find a label who's gonna release it and help us, you know, with the mastering and the artwork. If not, we'll just self-release it and call it a day or something or whatever. And I remember Chris from Profound Lore was kind of interested in the album because I did You know, he was
That's
asking me about Catilas, and I was like,
mhm.
oh, we're recording a tremendous album. And he was interested in hearing it. But, you know, when we sent him the album, he's like, yeah, this is cool. You know, I do like it. It's just maybe I'll do like a, I don't know what the term he used, but I think his schedule was really full, you know,
Mm.
and
Like a limited run or a limited release
yeah,
kind of
and
thing.
I think he had too much on his hands right now at this specific time. It's just the timing wasn't, yeah, and it was like, okay, you know, it's all good. And at the same time, I sent it to 20 Bucks Spin. It's like, hey, I mean, 20 Bucks Spin, they don't do doom metal, except they did work with Mournful Congregation a few times. It's like,
Right.
good try. And I didn't know what to expect. It's just like, okay, I'm just gonna send the whole album, see what happens,
Sure.
you know. And it's weird. Like I didn't see a response, and the guy's like, "Did you get a response?" Like, no. And I message Dave on Instagram. He's like, "Oh yeah, I responded. The album is really fucking good." He's like, "Really?" I checked my spam box. It's right there. It's like, "Oh, you
Oh,
responded."
oh
It's like it's like
man.
I want to release it. I want to sing you guys. Like, really? It's like even though like we're totally not death metal and not fast and you know yeah.
The all
And
the
it's like
bands on 20
yeah, and he
bucks.
was
Yeah.
so into like everything I talked to him about, the concepts, the aesthetic, and like and the album itself. And it's just like everything was just like, you know, Chris, you know, he liked it, but you know, he was really his schedule was really busy, and it's just like he didn't call for it. And Day was just like, yeah, man, let's do it. Just like, you know, my schedule is open for that, and I really like the album, and like let's really push it, you know. And every time like we were working on the layouts and stuff, and like every time I had a crazy idea, you know, and it's like Dave was like, yeah, let's do it, you know. You know, it's like really the enthusiasm. It's weird being enthusiastic about a style of music that's not really enthusiastic at
Yeah,
all. But
exactly.
you
Yeah.
see what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's just like it was great. Just the timing was great. Because sometimes it's all about timing, you know.
Sure. Sure.
But like the timing was great. The chemistry with Dave was great, and yeah, it's just like totally sent him like by random. I know he was already a fan of Cthulist, and so in my email, you know, I say, hey, Dave, this is Phil from Cthulist. Here's my funeral doom band with other guys from Cthulist, and it's not that metal. Just putting out there, there's no les beats. I mean, there's the guttural vocals, but
Hmm.
you know, I've seen some weird like people are saying like Atramentus calling it doom dead band. It's like no, no, no. I mean, the vocals are death metal inspired, yes, but there's like the death aspect for me. Doom dead is like a band like Krippikoulu from Finland who have a lot of doom parts, but then they pick up the tempo to
Sure.
play some like death metal riffs, or like sometimes
D beat
like a
or blast beat. Yeah, D
I mean
beat
we have
style
that, but
stuff.
it's black metal thing at the end of the album. But we don't have death metal riffs, you know. So it's like for me it's just funeral doom, you know,
Yeah,
funeral doom
totally.
metal. No death metal. So it's like I know it's, you know, you have a lot of death metal stuff, but you know, maybe check it out, maybe you like it. I know you work with, you know, some bands, so maybe, you know, I just took a chance basically. I know
Yeah, and
it's not like a niche label for this genre. For the niche genre would be a label like Solitude Prods from Russia, or Hypnotic Dirge from Canada, you know. But I was like maybe 20 bucks spin, you know, they have a solid uh, they have solid relationships all around with
yeah,
distributors and stuff. And
totally. He
maybe we want to try to aim a little bit higher. If not, we'll just self-release it and it's all fine. But I just took a chance basically, and yeah,
and it
the
paid
rest is
off.
history. You know?
Yeah. He I wrote to him and I asked him some questions, you know, about the record, and one of those I asked about the response, and he said that it was hands down one of the most popular releases that he did that year, 2020. Like
Yeah,
it was huge. I mean, it was
I
and
didn't expect that at all.
exactly, and he said the same thing. He said, I don't mean that to sound like the album wasn't great. I knew it was great when I heard it, but it was the fact that we don't usually do funeral doom,
Yeah.
and funeral doom is a genre, like we've spoken about numerous times tonight. It's not very accessible, and it's not the kind of music that you put on just for a goof or just for fun. It evokes a certain kind of response. So for your record to come out on a predominantly death metal label, and for it to do that well, I mean, that says a lot. It definitely does.
Yeah, it does.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, man.
And like I said, he was really receptive to my ideas. Like, you know, like I said, I consider Atramentus to be a funeral doom band, but you know, there's a lot of inspiration coming from epic doom bands, you know, like Candlemass and Solitude Eternus, Scald, and these kind of bands.
Yeah.
And it's like it kind of influenced the imagery of the band, the lyrical aspect of it, the aesthetic, the concepts, and like when I told him about that, he was like, "Yeah, this is, you know, he's fully on board with that." So it's like it's really cool. So we knew exactly, like, you know, from, you know, I had a clear idea how I kind of wanted the band to be represented and seen and heard, and he just like I said, he has a very open mind. So that's, I like to work with people like that. The same way with T-List, it made sense to, when Chris contacted T-List in 2013, it made sense to work with him because Chris has a very eclectic taste in music, much like I consider T-List to be eclectic. So that's coming back to Dave. He had that same mindset, and it's like, for me, I like working with people like this, because I know I'm not going to be pigeonholed, or like I'm going to be able to fully express. You know, I never work with a label that can impose artistic impose something on an artistic level.
Yeah, like
I never really had that. But still, like I said, it's great to work with somebody like that, you know.
I mean, it was just a match made, you know, like you guys really nailed it. So that was cool. I was curious about that, because it's like, you know, how did a funeral doom band, you know, from Quebec get in contact with 20 Buck out of Pennsylvania? How did this all come together? Like you said, a lot of it is about timing, and Dave was really enthusiastic about it, and you had a killer record on your hands ready to go, and it just seems like, right time, right place. And
exactly, it was ready to go, minus the mastering and the artwork. So
sure man, that's so cool. I think that's as far as questions and things that I have about the album, that this has been more than I could have ever hoped for. This has really been awesome. It's been so interesting and so enlightening. So many insights. This is that's just really, really amazing. I guess before we sign off tonight, what would you like people to know? If you haven't said it already, maybe what would you like people to know about this record, and how would you like them to like take it all in? Because it's a lot, like you said, there's a lot happening. So when you speak about the Atramentus record, what do you want people to know about it?
Well, people have different ways of experiencing music. For me, one of the best way to get into an album is listen to it while playing video games. I'm not joking. This is the type of album that, you know, it's a given if you know the style of music. If you don't know the style of music, it's an album that you listen alone, you know. It's an album you listen alone, and you could, you know, it's obviously obviously something that demands your full attention, but maybe like me, it could be grow on you in another way while listening to doing something else. But I feel like the ultimate way to experience it, if I'm being really honest with you, would be to um like listen to it when you're walking outside at night during a snowstorm. I mean that's pretty much the perfect way to
Yeah, to get the
experience
full
it.
vibe.
That's
Yeah, sure.
literally, if you want, like, if you're asking me what's like what's to be expected of this album, or what's how to experience it. I mean, it's like that's the kind of album you put out, you listen to it in your headphones, and you're outside at night, or out, and it's winter outside, and you listen to it, and and you let the cold embrace of winter um, take hold of you, and you listen to these tracks, and you'll understand you get a better understanding of the album this way, I think. But also it could be, you could just listen to the album with a cold beer, and with the story in front of you, and
Yeah.
read alongside it, like a novel, like an
Yeah.
audiobook or something. That's another way to experience it. I know some people did that.
Reading along, that's how I did it.
Yeah.
Reading along and looking at the insert, it was just like I said, it.
There's a lot of stuff in the lyrics, a lot of like the lines that I've actually sung in the album, plus the liner notes. So the way I write lyrics is that I have like the lines that I actually say in the in the songs,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like the liner notes to put them into context.
Right. That's
Yeah.
and again, for those of you that don't have the record, like what Phil's talking about here, you would be able to see as you follow along, because there's actually more text in the inserts than what you're actually saying and what you're actually singing, like on the record.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's an interesting thing to know, because at first you're like following along and you're like, this isn't like, it kind of like doesn't match it up, but then once you know that, then of course it does. So
yeah, I mean, be it like the way the text is written out, or just reading along the text that goes, like specific events that be, for me it's like I've done it in a certain way that specific events in the lyrics kind of evoke a certain feeling, or certain imagery, or certain color that I will associate with that riff. But I mean, this is a thing that is for me. I mean, I don't expect everyone to listen to our band to have seen Stygia, what I was talking about earlier. But
yeah,
I literally associate certain of these riffs with certain colors, and the lyrics I've kind of tried putting into words like a certain sight, like describing something that's like visually I can associate it with the melody, or the texture that I get from hearing Francois's the synth sounds of Francois. That was a really that was one of the things we did before we recorded the album, was select all the synth sounds that are going to be on the album. That took a while, because I was like really picky. It's like
that's cool,
I hear a specific synth sound, it's like, this sounds cool, but I don't see anything when I hear it.
Okay.
So it's like when we find a correct sounds, like I see something, I see a color associated with that, and then we just put it in musical context. It's like the riff is a color all of a sudden, more like another color, So that was like one of the most important aspects of the whole process, coming up with the correct sounds to associate with the album. Because the recording process was just like, typical, just record everything. We record our stuff, and we come up with extra arrangements on the spot with Xavier at the studio doing the drums. Sometimes I don't play drums, but sometimes I would hop in on the drums and kind of show him some patterns I had in mind, and then he would jump in and do it.
Sure.
He broke a lot of sticks, man. I just want to say he broke a lot of sticks, because it's really simple stuff to play on a surface, but you have to hit hard.
Yeah.
And he broke like, I don't know, like 4 set of sticks, something like that. I'm not sure. So it's like, yeah, it was like but aside from that, the only thing that was challenging was the vocals. it was painful, like physically painful. Like when doing those screams, I had to be like crouched and just yelling, crying into the microphone, not crying, but like screaming my guts out.
Yeah.
Nailing the multiple clean vocal harmonies, that took a while. But it was mostly like the screaming and the deep gutturals that like I had physical pain from it, and it's like
Yeah.
that's the best, like that's the best like way to know like if I really like it got the message across, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, the
but
opening, the vocals right at the beginning of the record, as you like do that first growl, and then there's
that was
almost,
painful. That was pain,
you
like
can,
right there. That was
and
pain. Just
you can hear
getting,
it. You
yeah,
can hear it too.
yeah. But like aside from that, like I said, the recording went well. It's just like I said, the most crucial aspect was finding the right sounds for the synths. Um, and like I said, it's all about colors, you know. At the end of the day, so it's just yeah, it was a really interesting experience to say the least. One of a kind in my life
For sure.
making this album. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like I said before, it's definitely something to be proud of, and
Hmm.
all the albums that you've done. I mean, I definitely have not. I'll admit that I have not listened to all 40 of your records, but I have a strong sense that this one is unlike any other one that you've ever put out.
It is unlike because everything else, like I said, you know, so it's like if I count, it's like I said, it's like more like 15 or 16 albums, and all the rest is just demos and EPs. It all ranges
Sure.
from different styles of death metal, some power metal. Um, but this is my only extreme doom band. You know, I have
Yeah.
another doom band in the works. It's a band called Crestfallen. It's going to be in the style of Candlemass and Solitude Eternus and a little bit of
Okay.
Manowar, slow Manowar songs that kind of inspired it. It's going to be quite dark too, but not funeral doom. It's going to be epic doom. And I want to find a vocalist that sings very high, like Manowar and in you know Queensryche, but put it into
Wow.
epic doom stuff. So
Cool.
it's not going to be
Okay.
as extreme as Introdumentus or as down tune, but it's something I look forward to. You know, it's going to
Sure.
expand on the Ctilis and Instrumentus lore, but in a different context. Because this is a lore, you know, you'd listen, you check out the lyrics in the Atramentus album. There's a huge, expansive lore, and it's part of the shared universe with my other band Ctilis.
Mhm.
And with this project, Crestfallen is gonna also go deep into this lyrical lore. You know, with the same areas talked about in the lyrics, but in a different era. You know.
Yeah.
My other project in the works, this Stygian, which is more like a technical power metal kind of thing, is also going to be featuring lyrics that have the same shared lore as all these bands. But it's all the same lore, but like expressed in a different way. So Atramentus is a more, you know, obviously has its own thing. Telis is his own thing. It's like it goes with the respective genres, you know.
Right.
I don't think I could have expressed what I wanted to express with the Tremendous with True Under the style of music, even though it's the same lore, you know. It's just like the best way I think to really, you know, express an emotion that comes from a deep place or express something that's really hard to describe with words. I feel it's best served with a style like funeral doom music where the music just crushes you
Yeah.
and just like really forces you to really, like I said at the beginning of the interview, really forces you to face emotions you wouldn't want to normally deal with or experience, you know. So it goes hand in hand with that, you know. And much as funeral doom, it's like you're forced into this slow crawl, this slow like trudging crawl, you know. And it's the same thing with these emotions. So like you experience them, you take them all in. It's like I have no choice but to go through this journey, you know. And it's like to face that and, you know, process that. And like I said, it's really interesting to see how people experienced the album and what they felt. You know, some felt fear, some felt sorrow, some felt hopelessness, but with maybe a glimmer of light at the end. You know, it never ends. That's what it's cool about this genre. As much as negative as it can be, there's still a lot of things you can take away from that, unless you're worship. So I just want to finish with that. That's like the ultimate, like you know, there's a lot of layers in Atramentus because there's so many things I want to express with this band. But when it comes down to it, worship, the last demo before Doomsday, the last day before Doomsday. That's like minimalistic funeral doom at its best, because all they want to get across is like, we want to kill ourselves. You know, that's like. Then that's like, at the end of the day, that's like, for me, that's like the ultimate in funeral doom. It's like, that's the most extreme thing I've ever heard in this style of music so far for me. You know, that's like, you know, that's another style of funeral doom. You know, that's really inspired of Atramentus. Like I said, we have a lot of inspirations, not as obvious, because I do think we have our own sound, but like, it really inspired me to really create something extreme. But I don't think I could write something as effective, as minimalistic as them. You know, they have, but it works well. You know, you listen to it. I only see one color, and it's the color of death. You know, and it works for them. You know, but I don't think anyone else could do it. You know, I don't think I could do that. I prefer to express what I want to express in different ways. But I really like, if Atramentus could tour with a band, I probably would be Worship from Worship from Germany. Yeah, that would be awesome for sure. Yeah, we've been compared to them, and I kind of see why, but they have a much more stripped down approach I really respect. You know, it's just really raw, and just, that's like another level of facing your emotions, like stripped down, like total depression. You know, just,
yeah, there's definitely different, like, there's definitely different, I don't want to say different levels, but I guess, for lack of a better term, there definitely is.
Definitely.
Yeah, man, we'll go ahead and we'll kind of wrap things up here. I want people to know where they can find you, and all of your music, and where they can find the Atramentus album. So please go ahead and just like let people know all of those things before we wrap up.
Well, obviously, 20 Buck Spin is a label that is worth supporting, as much as the band. So, you know, people can find tapes, CDs, and vinyl through them. Otherwise, there's distros all around, and Care Album, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to work with 20 Buck Spin. They have a great distribution setup. They have like a lot of good contacts everywhere. Otherwise, all my music can be found on my website, philtougas.ca. So that's PHILTOUGAS.ca. Where that's also the same website. You can also find more information on my services if you need a guest solo, or lessons, or transcription. I'm pretty swamped, but I mean, I do like doing all these things, and I always want to find the time to do all of that. So, you know, people can also find like my discography there. So everything I've ever released, or almost everything, can be found through there. You know, it's probably much more useful. The site is much useful to me than, you know, Facebook and Instagram, which are, you know, they're great sites for promotion, but ultimately there's a little bit too much drama on these sites to my taste. So I prefer to have a website where it has everything, and you don't have to wade through other people's stuff to find what you're looking for.
Totally. That's great.
That's pretty much it. Like I said, I'm just you know, working on these new bands, Chris Pollen and the Cimerian. I don't have a timetable set for them, because it's like just writing stuff, and also, you know, excited to go back writing new Catilas material eventually when the urge to write death metal is going to come back.
Yeah.
The same way, like I can't really know for sure when I'll write new Atramentus stuff, because it has to be written under specific conditions.
Sure.
Conditions, you know, either like stuff happening in my life or in my mental state, or literally stuff I experience on a physical level. What the things I see in my dreams, or what I experience outside, it all comes from these. All the inspiration comes from there. So it's like it's something I can't really control or predict, you know. So,
Right.
but there's always room for improvement in the stuff I write. So when I do write new music for these bands, I definitely want to take these things to the next level, and who knows what'll happen after, you know. But it's definitely something I want to do eventually, do another album, and, you know, tour with some bands. Atramentus would be definitely the hardest, the most challenging band to bring on a live show, for me personally, much more than any power metal, hyper tech death, or you know, extreme metal styles. I think it's the most challenging music to play for me, because doing all these vocals and guitars at the same time, and you know, trying to control my emotions while doing it, you know, that's why it would be a challenge. But eventually one day, maybe, you know, a concert or a tour would be something really cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much it, man.
Awesome. Well, man, Phil, thank you so much for taking time tonight to talk to me. It's been, like I said before, it's been amazing. Everything I could have hoped for, and I hope that the listeners are as enthused, or as interested, I should say, to listen to this record if they haven't already, because it really is an experience, and you really did an amazing job putting it together. And I know that as a fan of metal and funeral doom and all these other subgenres, that I definitely appreciate it. So thanks again, and yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thanks for having me. And to all the listeners out there, well, thanks in advance for giving the album a chance.
Right on. All right, Phil.